Hello. Okay, so sorry, I was just bringing something in. I think my throat needs to get swollen for a little. So, yes, studying time. Where is it? Here, distributed responsibility, ethics. Hey, let's start. Oh, because I didn't click show. Yeah, I think I finished the study earlier, like yesterday, so I decided to play some games instead, which is fun because I haven't had a chance to play game for almost a month. I'm gonna be real with you. Or more than a month. Except maybe mobile games, which I was watching YouTube videos. Take a guess. What speed I am watching the YouTube videos, by the way.
First off, we have raised over $275,000 in our first 3 days. We've gotten so many volunteer requests. I'm absolutely blown away and can't thank you enough. This is going to be reinvested right back into the community. Which brings me to my second point: feedback. We've heard from a ton of people.
Yeah, there we go. I'm watching YouTube videos at 3 times speed. Don't judge me. I need to study faster. So yeah, I'm trying to get to 4 times speed, but we'll see. My maximum speed is like 3.25. No, 3.25 something. Oh. Sorry, doing a lot of adjustment. Cool. Reading shits about this. The game is a system where ethical issues are distributed over a network of logic system, and game agents. The goal of the research on the ethics of games is to identify an issue, establish the network of game elements involved, and map different degree of effectiveness and responsibility. So, what's the problem? Who involved in the problem? And what's the degree of responsibility and effectiveness of the agents who are involved in the problem? Because we are not only talking about people here, we are talking about informational agents involved, which, well, also talks about stuff that are informational, digital. And I think I'm entering the easy part now, because yesterday was like all those days of like studying, it has been the hard part. So I think this is the easy part, which is where he tries to apply the frameworks, ethics to the case studies. So yippee. Also, I'm reading like a Discord group chat, and I'm just like terrified of like everyone just goes, "Oh yeah, girl loves when men do this," and you just need to be confident, and it's kind of terrifying in a way. I don't know. I still cannot describe fully what the feeling is. It kind of feels objectifying to people, to everyone, to generalizing. So I'm kind of disliking that. Ouch, I bumped into something. Let's see. Applying ethic case studies. It is now time to put my ethical framework into practice. So far, most of the argumentation. Did I mute my Discord? I don't want to like. Okay, I mute my Discord. Actually, I muted my desktop audio source, so you all won't hear any sounds either. It is now time to put my ethical framework into practice. So far, most of the argumentation has been purely theoretical, with a number of examples that specifically illustrated the key arguments of this method for describing the ethics of computer games. In this chapter, and the ones that follow, I wish that he actually adds more example in the previous chapter, because a lot of stuff can be explained better that way. But go forth, King. with a number of examples that specifically illustrated the key argument of his method of describing the ethic of computer games. In this chapter and the ones that follow, I will apply the framework to specific issues, starting with a close reading of the ethic of 3 games: BioShock, DEFCON. DEFCON is the war game, right? Where nuclear war game, I think, yeah. And World of Warcraft. So what I think is, if I remember correctly, he splits it into 3: single player game, multiplayer game, and I want to sneeze. I've been having this urge to sneeze sometimes this past few days, weeks, but no sneezing, so that's kind of weird. So yeah, single player game, multiplayer games, and massively multiplayer games, which is World of Warcraft. This game will also be used as illustration of moral general reflection. I think a single player you just told me that. Single player, multiplayer, and online game worlds. Okay, so he's not using the term massively multiplayer, but online game worlds. The analyses are not exhaustive, but serve as an illustration of how to analyze computer games from an ethical perspective. So let's write it out. We'll apply the framework. Specific issues, starting with a close reading of the ethics of 3 games: BioShock, Bishock, bisexual shock. It's normal. Okay. DEFCON, and I forgot to add space. That's why it's there. Whoa. Will also be used as illustrations of more general more general reflections on the ethics of single player, multiplayer, and online. What is multiplayer doesn't have any anthroposis? Not what? It's not anthroposis. Whatever. No, I'm. What? Why is it a surgical? I fucking forgot. What's this? Asterix? Yeah, it's not Asterix. What's Asterix even about? No, not that character. Yeah, Asterix is this symbol. What do you call it? A straight line? It's literally called a straight bar, I think, or a straight bar. What do you call it? A straight line. What is it does not use this? Fascinating. The player and online game worlds. The analyses are not exhaustive, but serve as an illustration of how to analyze computer games from an ethical perspective. That'll be hilarious if it is. If it's what do you call it? Shit, I forgot. If it is exhaustive, because that means okay, this is all we can apply it to. Nothing more. Okay, let's continue. Bioshock and the ethic of single-player games. The mainstream computer games industry can sometimes be rather conservative. It is true that games push the boundaries of technological development and they often use the most advanced resources afforded by computing research. In fact, it is possible to claim that computer graphics as a discipline benefits very much from approaches that have origin in computer game needs. Nevertheless, as much as it is an innovative technological field, the game industry is culturally conservative. What does it mean? The degree of innovation in the technology is seldom coupled with innovation in gameplay, storytelling, or virtual world creation. Uh, I would blame capitalism, truly, but honestly, I don't know how's the indie market was market. How's the indie community was doing back then, and now I don't know. I feel like the indie community nowadays is doing so great and so well at all of this innovation, and I'm not sure if it is still quote unquote conservative. I guess it is still conservative when you're not in the indie community space because mostly most mobile games, which I think are dominated by big companies and shits are they're pretty similar all in all. And I think this is what people are talking about when they say that gaming is boring, but then they just decided not to look for other types of games. It's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna play the games from this 3 big company and never go somewhere else. And it's just like, Of course, there are economic reasons for this. Mm, I just mentioned it previously, but okay. Based on large budgets, game development companies require to produce a high quality title. Are we talking about high budget cost or just like inventors who goes like, no, you must create a subpar quality thing because we don't want shits. And the risk aversion of the investors, okay, I was just thinking that provide those budgets. But sometimes there are companies that dare to try something new, and the games that result from this combination of daring, innovation, and talent are often heralded as the symbol of what computer games can contribute to both the popular and the fine arts. Launched in 2007 to critical acclaim and heralded as the definitive step of mainstream games towards the artistic and expressive capacities of media like cinema, Bioshock constitutes one of the most significant examples of what the mainstream game industry understands as a game that pushes the boundaries of game design expression, targeting major computer game players. I'm not really sure what happens in 2007, so I cannot really tell whether or not the whole thing, like, well, what's the other game that exists in the same era as Bioshock, and how does it work? Like, not how does it work. How does everything what's the sphere going on? Whatever the word is. Sorry, I'm just writing something unhinged. 3 winners all the way. That's terrifying. Launched in 2007 to critical acclaim and heralded as the definitive step of mainstream games towards the artistic and expressive concepts of media like cinema, Bioshock constitutes one of the most significant examples of what the mainstream game industry understands as game. I already read that, didn't I? Yeah. Furthermore, thanks to its storyline and game mechanics, Bioshock. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Game design expression. Oh, because it's targeting mature audience. Okay. Thanks to its storyline and game mechanics, Bioshock was also received as a game in which moral gameplay will be of extreme importance for the game experience. It is therefore of interest to analyze this game in the light of ethical theories I have presented in the previous chapter. Cool. Game design expression, targeting mature computer game players. Furthermore, thanks to its storyline and game mechanics, Bioshock was also received as a game in which moral gameplay would be of extreme importance for the game experience. In this analysis, I'm not going to describe some elements that could be of interest in outlining. You're not? In outlining Bioshock ethics, like the online community surrounding the game, the technical problems that the game suffered on release, and how they affected some players, or the game reception by its core target audience. Bioshock is interesting because it both failed and succeeded in the task of creating an interesting ethical single-player computer game experience. Okay, so it both failed and succeeded. Interesting. Wait, why are you not going to outline those? I'm not going to describe some elements that could be of interest. Like the online community surrounding the game, the technical problems that the game suffered on release, and how they affected some players or the game reception. Maybe just too much stuff to talk about. I understand if it is. Understanding this duality and what it teaches us about the development of a ethical game is of extreme interest. I'm also aware that Bioshock is very much a successor to the classic game System Shock 2. I never played System Shock. I really want to play System Shock for a long time, but I never get the chance to play so. But again, there's little in that conversation that can inform my interest in the particular ethical experience that this game creates and how it limits the range of ethical gameplay possible for a single-player game. So, yep, we setting up a scope of what we are going to talk about, not everything in it. Bioshock is an example of large budget production aimed at creating something different and recognizable as a worthy of merit, even by those who are not interested or invested in computer games. The art direction combining the impressive graphic technology with a unique vision of how the game world should be experienced immediately distinguished Bioshock from all the other first-person shooter in the markets. So the art direction, the impressive graphic technology, and the unique vision of what the developer wants the player to experience. Nevertheless, this is a rather conservative game in terms of gameplay design. It is a conventional first-person shooter where the player navigates a 3D environment using weapons and special powers to eliminate enemies. This enemy's resistance increases the more the player explores the game world, with the occasional boss fight against a particularly powerful rival. The innovation in the basic mechanics and rules of the game are superficial. Player can acquire genetic powers that work in combination with an environment, allowing an ecology of weapons, a set of tools that encourage tactical combat, nothing radically new, but interesting and rather well implemented, so... In terms of gameplay design. What makes Bioshock unique is the game world where the action took take place. And it's consistent. Okay. And its consistency as a design experience. Unlike most other first-person shooter, Bioshock does not take place in a space station. The enemies are not aliens, and the protagonist is not a space marine. What are we talking about here? What game? What game? It's released in 2007, right? It says that Bioshock is released in 2007. Yes. When does Dead Space get released? Let's see. Not 2008. Maybe not that. First person shooter, blah 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 blah. Why my fucking like hurts? Help? Help me? What games shoot aliens around 2007? Halo? Are we talking about Halo? Unlike most, Bioshock does not take place in space station, the enemies are not aliens, and the protagonists are not space marine. Halo 1. Oh, when does Halo 1 release? 2001, Halo 3? I think Miguel is referring to Halo series. Not gonna lie. Ah, I lost. Shit, I lost my tabs. Where is it? There we go. Now we can continue. As a matter of fact, as players, we know very little about the main character's past. We do not know that enemies were once human, and that the year is 1959. Enemies one. Okay. Bioshock builds its unique aesthetic in blending futuristic technologies such as intelligent robots and genetic engineering with the fictional space of a hypothetical 1950 Art Deco underwater city. The world of Bioshock is unique and refreshing. Unique and refreshing. So first, there's a let's see. The characters' background are quite unknown. Humans, enemies were once human, so what do they call it? A subversion of the previous genre. And the year is 1959. So instead of a futuristic settings, and the enemies are being aliens, and that we know the old background of the legendary main character status or something, it diverts that by having none of those, having the opposite of those, I could say. And then it has a unique aesthetic in blending futuristic technology, intelligent robots, genetic engineering with the fictional space of a hypothetical 1950 Art Deco underwater city. But it's not only the world that makes the game interesting. Its storyline has to be taken into consideration. Cool. Wouldn't Miguel consider the storyline to be part of the game world? So yeah, because Miguel defines there's two things that are foundational to the game. The game rules and the game world. Are those foundational? Does all game have game world? No, actually. Actually, does it? Wait, let me see. Game games, rules and game world. Doesn't explain shit. Uh-huh. Simulated environments with fictional elements. I guess all games have game worlds then? Yeah, all games. Even Tetris has a game world, you could argue, right? Cool. I'm lost. Where am I? There's so many things. There's so many things to be read about. Help. Here? Yeah, here. Since it's relevant for the ethics of Bioshock. Cool. The game starts with a plane crash and discovery by the only survivor adrift in the middle of the ocean of a strange access gate to some kind of underwater facility called Rapture. Soon, the story unfolds. Rapture is an underwater utopian city created by a man named Andrew Ryan, a Randian objectivist who believes in rational self-interest and a kind of extreme libertarian capitalism where all humans are equals and mankind is the only god. This is interesting because why do we like suddenly end up in here after a plane crash? Question mark. It's so funny. Bioshock, welcome to Rapture. Now gods are kings, only man. But Rapture is a dystopia where the deranged citizens fight for meager resources. Their minds forever lost due to the excessive use of genetic manipulation. There's also a latent conflict between Ryan and the mythical character Atlas, who resisted the forms of despotic order that ended the initial dream of Rapture. Ryan Atlas. Mythical character. Oh. Wait, Ryan is the creator of the city. Okay. The protagonist is drawn into the last effort of this resistance, and he is progressively guided by Atlas towards the murder of Ryan, and thus the end of Rapture. But of course, interesting plot twists reveal the protagonist to be a pawn in a larger power struggle that only ends with the closure of the dream at the bottom of the sea. Interesting. So there's a fight between two groups of Ryan and Atlas, and Ryan is the Randian objectivist, rational self-interest, extreme libertarian capitalism. Uh-huh. And then what? So what does the Atlas represents? Are we not going to talk about that? Because I think that'll be an interesting point to talk about as well. This is a rough summary of the main elements of Bioshock's storyline, which is of course more complex and detailed, and rather compelling in its character-driven depth. Its use of environmental cues in the ruins of Rapture configures a classic and a very well thought computer game narrative. Sorry, I'm trying to read it slowly because this is confusing. What makes Bioshock the target of this ethical analysis is the importance that the developer gave to moral choice and moral reasoning in the game. Okay, cool. Importance that the designers gave to moral choice and moral reasoning in the game. Yeah. So kind of like Walking Dead series. The story is of course important, but it is oriented towards a certain reflection on the modes and motives of player agency in the game world. Story is important, but it's oriented towards a certain reflection. It is designed to do that. There's an ethical affordance essence of the story. In other words, Bioshock was designed as an ethical experience. Okay. Bioshock was designed as an ethical experience. And it is thus interesting for what it will illuminate about the ethics of single player game experience. The main reason why Bioshock is interesting from a moral perspective is its insistence on choice as the game world reason to exist. Of course, choice is related to the particular interpretation of objectivism the game proposed, but also to the experience of the game. Okay, the choice is related to the particular. What objectivism are we talking about? About the Randian thing? I think, yeah. Of the game. Choice appeals to the ethical player who has to reflect on the meaning of her actions and their consequences. What is a player? Player has to reflect on the meaning of actions and their consequences. Bioshock has two significant ethical divides oriented towards the ethical player. What is that? Two method of creating moral gameplay that I will analyze in their relative success and failure in order to cast light on the ethics of single-player computer games. I need to take note of that. So I remember there's two of them. Relative success and failure. In order to cast light on the ethics of single player computer games. I only remember the failure, so what success was it? The first interesting ethical divide? The first interesting ethical design element is based on the story of the game and how it mirrors the gameplay experience. As I have mentioned, the player is put on the middle of a conflict in Rapture, a conflict between the founder of the city under Ryan and Atlas, a mysterious character who, well into the game, reveals his true identity and motives. It is quite clear from the beginning that one of our main missions will be to kill Andrew Ryan. All the actions in the first half of the game are oriented to disable the defenses behind which Ryan is hiding. As players, we suspect that Ryan will be a boss fight and that we will have to eliminate him using the powers and knowledge we acquire. Ooh, spicy, yes, because it has built us up as like a powerhouse with all the thing that we get and shits. Let's write that. So there's a coherency between the story and the gameplay that we experience, which is good, unlike 13 back then, which is incoherent. But the more information we gather, the more we suspect about Atlas' intention, and the more the narrative pays us towards questioning the purpose of our action. Suspect about Atlas' intentions, and the more the narrative paces us toward questioning the purpose of our actions. We think maybe we will need to hear him, maybe we should actually ally with him, and then the interesting ethical magnetic place. We cannot avoid killing Andrew Ryan. Not only that, like yes, we cannot avoid killing him, but later on, other than not being able not to kill him, like most of the games, like how to say it. Miguel, I think, will explain it better, but I'm just like saying. It's not only because we cannot kill him, because the progression of the game told us to do so. For example, like what's a good example? For example, Call of Duty. I think we have to. No, I'm not sure what Call of Duty. I'm trying to remember a game where. Mm, wait. Let me check my list of game and try to remember if I have anything that I could use as a reference right now because my mind's blanking on games. But definitely not Dead by Daylight. I think Misao, since Misao has a linear storyline, you could say that the choices we made at the end is no. Actually, Misao has two endings, so nope. Or multiple endings. Throw that away. What else? Green Hell? I think no. Green Hell has multiple endings as well. I'm trying to find any linear games that I remember. Holy shit, I don't remember any linear games. The Forest is not a linear game. Disco Elysium? No? Half-Life? I think Half-Life. So, oh god, it's so embarrassing if I actually don't remember how Half-Life went. I think Half-Life only have one ending and basically, yeah, because it's linear, so there's only one option to do, but Miguel will explain that later on. Hey, it's not only because there's only one action to do, but actions, blah 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 blah. Need to hear him. Maybe we should actually align with him. And then the interesting mechanic takes place. We cannot avoid killing Andrew Ryan. Throughout the game, up until the moment we have been controlled by Atlas, who had implemented some kind of mental domination system that could be triggered by uttering some words. Ah, interesting. So we were tricked into like believing, hey, yeah, we are the player, we have control in this, but turns out no. This whole entire time, probably not. I think this is the successful part actually. Huh. The same words we as a player heard in the briefings for the different mission up to that point. Oh, that's terrifying. Like, how many decisions you actually made in the game are actually your decision, your character decision. In a moment of solo writing, cutscene gives meaning to all previous gameplay and challenges or experience of the game so far, and it is precisely this intense manipulation of player agency that makes this sequence in Bioshock an interesting, successful ethical experience. Interesting, successful, ethical experience. Before analyzing the game in detail, it is important to describe some of the less stellar aspects of Bioshock as a computer game. The choice of the first-person shooter and the strict alliance to its trope. Why is this important and the previous part is important? And I guess it's important for this case. Okay. Some of the less stellar aspect of Bioshock as a gamer game, the choice of the first-person shooter game, and the strict alliance to its trope. Bioshock, the choice between two evils. Oh yeah, it's the book has a picture of like we are aiming a machine gun towards the what do you call little sister in Bioshock? Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh hello, welcome. I'm having some trouble with my throat right now, but yeah, I'm just like commenting on how the book has a picture of like us as a player in Bioshock aiming a machine gun towards the little sister. That's so funny. Where was I? The choice of the first-person shooter genre and the strict alliance to its trope and figures of style make Bioshock innovations relative. The game still plays like a conventional shooter, and there's no advance of the game's internal mechanics. The worst problem from a design perspective is that this focus on the classic shooter mechanics seems to have come at the expense of game world exploration. I see. To its tropes. But yes, hello, welcome. And figures of style. Next, Bioshocks. Innovation. Bioshock. Shock. That's not how you write shock. Interesting. Bioshock. Innovations. Relative. Conventional shooter. And there is no advance of the genre in terms of mechanics. The worst problem from a design perspective is that this focus on classic shooter mechanics seems to have come at the expense of the game world exploration. Expanse of game world exploration. Rapture is a fascinating environment, but as players we are only allowed to explore some parts of it, while the rest tempts us from behind the windows and in drawings and stories placed in the environment. I don't know. Well, I don't play Bioshock, so I can't really comment on it. But like, wouldn't the FPS setting? I guess you could replace the FPS, the whole conventional and FPS thing with much more simpler fighting style with power ups and something, and it still retains the feeling of building up. Hey, we're going to fight a boss in the end, but turns out no. It could still build up that expectations, and yes, I don't know. But player, while that rest us from behind the windows and drawings and stories placed in the environment. Bioshock feels more like a theme park and less like a game. Ouch. The environment is limited, focused on very concrete experience, very carefully designed, and as such, the capacity to explore the rest of the world is secondary. This means that for most of the games, the player merely moves from checkpoint to checkpoint, completing missions in order to unlock new spaces. Rapture seems a theme park and not a world. Okay, yeah. You know what? I can see what you mean here. Most of the games, player merely moves from checkpoint to checkpoint. In classic shooter of this structure, player agency was rather limited in terms of thinking about the meaning of the actions that were taken. Yes, because people shoot. It is a gender convention not to think about the world around the player and to just focus on moving from one series of challenge to another, much like the classic Half-Life. Oh, interesting. Half-Life is mentioned. are taken. It is a a genre convention not to think about the world around here and to just focus on moving from one series of challenge to another. So this is the problem with FPS. Interesting. Much like in the classic, uh, what makes Bioshock ethically interesting is how it underwent the narrative with this design convention in order to explore the ethic of choice. That's what I was saying before. It was using its status as FPS to do that. But I guess at the same time, because it focuses too much on the FPS and like variation of stuff, it undermines there's less of the world that we explore, and so it feels like a theme park. Which, okay then. Intertwines the narrative with this design convention in order to explore the ethics of choice. As player, until the moment when Ryan is murdered, we basically follow Atlas' instruction in order to advance and finish the game. When confronted with Ryan, the moment in which the truth is finally unveiled, the process of playing the game comes into new light. The instructions were part of a mind control scheme, and all the actions have led to a morally questionable conclusion, the death of Andrew Ryan. This manipulation of player agency is what gives this design choice its ethical nature. The manipulation, okay. I'm gonna write that. As I have argued, a player is an ethical subject that has the capacity to reflect on the meaning of her actions and of her values within the game. Most computer games do not challenge those values. The player is the hero, the actions are consequent, and there are no moral dilemmas. No need for a deep reflection on means and purposes. Yeah, there's a lot of that. No need for a deep reflection on means and purposes. Bioshock builds on this tradition as said in an intelligent use of the player replied to Wire. We don't expect this mission, the closed path we are following, to be anything other than reflections of the actions the designer and developer wants us to experience, in the order they want us to. Wait. Bioshock builds on this tradition as said in an intelligent use of the player replied to Wire. Yeah? We don't expect these missions, the closed path we are following, to be anything other than the reflection of the actions. We can reflect on what they mean, but we cannot do anything to change them. This is precisely what the narrative of Bioshock is actually saying. We had no choice. At all moments, we were guided by a force more powerful than our own will. All of a sudden, our actions become moral actions while we are facing Ryan, the character we are supposed to kill. Choice at all moments. We were guided by a force more powerful than our own will. We don't expect this mission, the close path we are following, to be anything other than reflections of actions in the center. Wait, what? I still don't understand what's the intelligent use of the player repertoire. I mean, I understand the whole thing that the developer were trying to say. I don't understand what Miguel is trying to say here. There's a further mechanical. Sorry. Oh my. Oh no. Okay, I think I feel better. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Element of our unreal. Okay. There's a further mechanical refinement in terms of ethical player agency. As soon as we meet Ryan, our agency becomes even more limited. We can move around, but we cannot interact with the game world, and we are deprived of our weapons. That's a cutscene. You can reflect on what? Wait, aren't we already talking about when we are talking about Ryan? Didn't you already say that our agency is limited when we do that? Huh? We don't expect these missions. What missions? The coast path we are following. What coast path? To be anything other than the reflection of the actions the designer and developer wants us to experience, in the order they want us to experience them. Huh? Yeah, I don't get it. Refinement in terms of ethical player agency. As soon as we meet Ryan, our agency becomes even more limited. We can move around, but we cannot interact with the game world, and we are deprived of our weapons. We have no choice, and the game resorts to computer-controlled scenes in which we witness how we kill under Ryan. The change from actor to spectator, from agent to passive being. Oh, okay. Marks what should be read as a design ethical experience. We are powerless, contemplating a horrendous act of which we are mere witness, yet that we have caused by our previous action. Witnesses, yet that we have caused by our previous actions. The reasoning and manipulation of the network of distributed responsibility is what makes Bioshock mental control plot a brilliant example of the ethical computer game. The understanding, yeah, and the manipulation of the network of distributed responsibility is what makes Bioshock's mental control plot a brilliant example of the ethical capacities of computer games. How so? I still don't understand. I still don't fully understand why is it connected to the distributed responsibility framework. Throughout most of the game, it seems that players are central agents in a world designed by the developer to be interacted with in a specific way, shaping in this way a two-way relationship in which the developer have the responsibility for the game world and the freedom of the player within it. Oh, okay, now I'm seeing it. While the player is responsible for the actions taken within the game, but when the moment of killing Ryan arrives, the balance in that network shifts. So there's a shift in the balance of where before developers are responsible for the game world and the player is responsible for the actions taken. But when the moment of killing Ryan arrives, the balance shifts. Suddenly the player is not an agent, but passive in the hands of a computer. Okay. Passive in the hands of the computer, which acts with the values of the narrative. By introducing a new element, there we go. There was no choice or freedom. We are forced to reflect upon the meaning of the game and our actions. That is our weight in the network. There we go. The degree of responsibility we have in the whole situation. Of whether or not we actually are responsible or not. Do we have any agency? Do we have any? Are we an active thing or not? We are not empowered beings, but mere agents in a larger system in which the extent of our agency will be questioned. In which the extent of our where have I heard the term empowered before? Was it when we were talking about Foucault? Was Foucault talking about empowerment as well? I'm lost. Will be questioned. And this is precisely the root of an ethical experience, the reflection upon the meaning of the previous action and our being as player in the world of rapture. The reflection upon the meaning of the previous actions and our beings as players in the world of rapture. How many times empowered mentioned? I think Foucault were talking about that. Michel Foucault. Empowered ethical beings, yes. Empowered, yeah. No, or I'm pretty sure. Am I? I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I think Foucault. Let's see. Being of subjectivity. Blah 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 blah. Power structure, yes. Uh-huh. Does Foucault talk about this? Well, no, apparently not. I didn't find it online, so maybe not. Maybe yes. Okay then. Cool. I guess not. This design decision in Bioshock is particularly fascinating because it presumes a moral agent. Uh-huh. Fascinating because, yeah, it presumes a moral agent. I'm very good at computer gameplay. This is why, also, what do you call it? microtransactions are funny as fuck because transactions presumes that because it presumes not a moral agent, but instead a paying agent, a customer. I'm very good at computer game players are moral beings, but we seldom find a game that appeals directly to our morality as agents, yes. Bioshock requires an ethical player to understand the design decision. Oh, okay. But we seldom find a game that appeals directly to our morality as agents. And we seldom play those as well. I wonder why. I still don't know whether. Why? Why though? Like, is it because the game is boring? Wait, is the game boring? I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, I'm opening something. And I need to pee. I need to pee somewhere. I need to pee. BRB, pee time. Pee time, pee time. Now, that's a drinking thing. What is it? What? Was it? I forget to put this somewhere. Time. Right here? Yeah, right here. Okay, Mike, let's go. Let's see. Mr. Zelda played them as well. Did I read that? I think I read that. Actually, I read that, yeah. But how do I forget that I write shits? Bioshock requires an ethical player to understand the design decision of depriving the player of control at a specific point, but also forcing her to reflect on the meaning of the previous actions taken in the game. All consequent with her player repertoire, but clearly unethical in the context of the game narrative. What? Interesting. On the meaning of the previous action taken in the game. All consequent with her player repertoire, but clearly unethical, all consequent with her. What does it mean? Following as a result of effect? Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. But clearly unethical in the context of the game narrative. By appealing precisely to the ethical player, limiting her choice and agency in the game world, and creating a simulation structure that mirrors the ethical issues of choice and consequence raised by the narrative, Bioshock has a strong ethical component in its configuration as game experience. Wait, what? Oh, okay. This argued requirement of a reflective ethical player brings the closed linear world of Rapture to a dimension of moral experience that defines the game as an interesting blend of narrative, gameplay, and ethics. And it does so by combining the narrative aspect with a moral reflection of the nature of game mechanics and how they are mapped into the player repertoire. Ah, okay. Okay. Narrative aspect with a moral reflection on the nature of game mechanics and how they are mapped onto the player repertoire. Wait, what? Sorry, I'm trying to understand this better. Okay. Bioshock Marking Event was focused on another element of ethical gameplay, one that, as I will argue in the rest of the analysis, is both questionable and much less innovative than the narrative-based approach I have just described. This is the one I remember a lot. The second element was centered on the presence. Okay, so the second element is marketing Kaminha. Which is less interesting. I see. Miguel will argue in the rest of this analysis is both questionable and much less innovative innovative than the narrative based approach he just described. The second element was centered. I've talked about this multiple times already. I don't know if it's in the stream, but other stream, yes. On the presence in Rapture of girls called Little Sisters. and their importance in the gameplay progression. Why's my feet so itchy? Okay, let's continue. Sorry, I was reading something. The legit moral dilemma focuses on the convenience or not of killing these girls to harvest some resources, but the implementation of this mechanic was not successful for reasons that are closely connected to the merits of the mind control. Really? Was it connected to that? I actually don't really know. Gameplay. The alleged moral dilemma focus on the con, con, convenience, there we go, or not of killing these girls to harvest some resources. But the implementation of this mechanic was not successful for reasons that are closely closely connected to the merits of I hate it. I hate when I have to correct the thing that I don't know what's wrong with multiple times. Ethical gameplay. Was it tied? This little sister are genetically modified young girls with zombie eyes and zombie eyes? And a large syringe. They're always protected by a Big Daddy, a biomechanical monster out of Jules Verne's who's Jules Verne's worst nightmares. Little sisters are in charge of collecting Adam from corpse, one of the key substances in Rapture genetic nightmare. Their apparent fragility is compensated by the presence of Big Daddies, a true challenge for any player who wants to take them down. Little sisters are precious because the Adam they harvest can be used for buying new upgrades for the player's genetic powers. But to obtain these resources, players first have to kill the Big Daddies. And then eliminate the Little Sisters. So we have to kill the Big Daddies anyway. So yeah. Yeah. We it's ethical dilemmas. We don't kill the Little Sisters. We kill the Big Daddy. Basically family to the then eliminate the sister. And this is designed to be central ethical gameplay mechanic of Bioshock. Will you kill the little sister and harvest her resources, or will you let her live and survive with fewer resources but with a cleaner conscience? You already killed her family member, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna spare you or I'm gonna kill you. Yeah, you know what? I think I kind of see the problem with the choices that Bioshock are giving us there. Shock. Kill the little sister and harvest her resources, or will you let her live and survive with fewer resources but with a cleaner? I think Miguel also criticized other sorts of game, other things in Bioshock later on. Let's see if I remember it correctly. But we still killed the Big Daddy. Daddy is question mark. Bioshock harvesting versus rescuing a little. I think it's a funny image, like harvest Bioshock meme. It's a thing like being used. Yeah, it's being used for like the cat emoji, because like not the cat emoji, like the cat meme, like harvest or rescue the cat. What? Since when there's an adopt or harvest? Harvest rescue. Harvest rescue with emoji. Harvesting season. Why there's that me? Meeting a fellow Bioshock fan, finding out they harvest little sisters. Initially, this type of decision seems to appeal to both the player as subject in the game and to her ethic outside the game. Since the sisters are portrayed as harmless girls, why would you do that? Why would you harvest them? It could also look like an ethical choice. It involves life or death and reflecting about consequences and actions. Interesting. Seems to appeal to both the player as subject in the game and to her ethics outside of the game. Since they are harmless girls, it could also look like an ethical choice. It involves life or death and reflecting about consequences and actions involving the player as an ethical. It involves life or death and reflecting about consequences and action as an ethical agent in the game world. But what did I write? But the little sister mechanic turns out to be an incomplete implementation of an ethical mechanic due to the misinterpretation of the game weight as a design system in the ethical configuration of the player and her relations with the game world. Oh, okay. Implementation of an ethical mechanic due to the misinterpretation of the game's weight as a design system in the ethical configuration of the player and her relations with the game world. Let me try to understand this better. This will be an implementation of an ethical mechanic, yes, due to the misinterpretation of the game weight. What's the game weight? As a design system in the ethical configuration, as a game weight as a design system and how relation with the game art. So it was they misinterpret how the effects it's giving as a design object to the player. Yes. Let's analyze the mechanic in more detail. From a purely formal perspective, players are faced with a choice between fewer resources and more resources, depending on a decision that the game's semantic layer insists on telling us is of moral nature. These resources are potentially linked to the difficulty of the game and how much the player can do to beat it. So far, it seems quite clear that design of this type will surely yield interesting ethical gameplay involving the player in the larger experience of the game world. Sorry. Larger experience of the game world and empowering her to take a moral standpoint in her ways of inhabiting it. In this sense, this is a good lesson to learn in terms of the ethical design of computer games experience. If the player choice are closely tied to survival in the game world, but those choices about resources will affect her position in the network of responsibility of the game, then we will most likely have an ethical game. More clearly, if the player choice concerning resources have an impact on how the world perceives and responds to the player values, then we will have ethical gameplay. Ah, interesting. However, sorry, I'm yawning. Okay, let's fix this. Version of the game world. What do I want to think? My hair, help. My hair is obstructing. Oh wait, oh my god. Tied to survival in the game world. But those choices about resources will affect her position. So yeah, even like difficulty stuff and shits will affect our position, basically it's saying, in the network of responsibility. The game, then we will most likely have an ethical game. Most likely. More clearly, if the players choices concerning resources have an impact on how the world perceives and responds to the Undertale is so good in this values, then we will have ethical gameplay. When does Undertale get released? It was 2013, right? Let's see if I'm correct, actually. It's a 10-part since when? It's 2015. Undertale is 2015. Oh my god. What the hell is a bedtime simulator? I'm serious. Oh no! Wait, Undertale Yellow is 2003? Oh my god, I feel so old. Mori is 2002? Oh lord, no. Oh no. I feel so old now. Then we will have new gameplay. But this is not the case in Bioshock due to a problematic design choice. There's barely any difference between letting the little sisters live or die. So, yeah. Since the player will receive Adam as a gift if they are left alive, in a quantity similar to what she would get after killing the girls. Furthermore, the decision to let the girls live or die only has an impact on the ending of the game, and not its progression. Okay. Bioshock, due to a problematic design choice, there is barely any difference between letting the little sister live or die, since the player in a similar quantity regardless of the choice. Furthermore, the decision only has impact on the ending of the game and not the progression. Undertale did a really good job and making it impact the whole progression, like only in the ending of the game. Oh yeah, we just kill a few people there. It's not a big deal. Nobody will talk about it. No, nobody will change pace or anything about that. But Undertale did that very meaningfully. Much I slipped. My hand slipped. Much less in the game world reacted. Yeah, there we go. Much less in the way the game world reacts to the player's ethical stance. Rapture, it seems, that does not care much about ethics of its inhabitants, and all choices are deprived of meaning, which in itself is an interesting topic to explore, as the mind control example shows, but not in the way implemented in the Little Sister mechanic. I think Miguel was trying to address like people who say, but Rapture is that kind of place. Morality is not important, so yeah, it might not. Maybe the inhabitants doesn't really care about that, but not in the way it's being implemented right now. It's just bad design. And all choices are deprived of meaning. Miguel basically just saying, yeah, you're just copying too much if you say that. It is an interesting topic to explore, as the mind control example shows, but not in the way implemented in the Little Sister mechanic. The problem with this mechanic is that it trivializes the moral consequences of the player. To reflect on her actions by depriving the choice of any consequence to her relation with the world. If the inhabitants of Rapture reacted in very ways to different paths taken with Little Sister, or even if they acknowledge difference in this choice, then there will be a meaning for this section. If the game design is going to afford the decision as ethical, then it has to implement consequences, subsystem of rewards tied to the initial choices. Otherwise, player will react to dilemmas not with a moral stance, but with a player logic focused on achieving their goals in the game experience. Okay. Implement consequences. Does all ethics have? Does all ethic needs consequences? Subsystems of rewards tied to the initial choices. Otherwise, players will react to the dilemmas not with a moral stance, but with their player logic, focused on achieving their goals in the game experience. I just want to get this game done all over, man. In the case of a Little Sister, player will mostly likely decide if they want to kill them or not based on how much item they require to explore certain unique powers, or if they want to see any of the alternative ending of the game. Yeah. Undertale also addresses this, so that's why I like it. The ending of the game part. They require to explore certain genetic power increase, or if they want to see any of the alternative game. Or if they want to calculate how much item is it possible to get, provided the different gameplay path. Oh, okay. Provided the different gameplay path. Furthermore, those players that may want to experience the gameplay ethically will not receive any kind of feedback for their actions besides the differing amount of resources gathered. I like that. Will not receive any what kind of feedback for their action besides the differing amount of resources gathered. In Bioshock, there's no experience of the player subject as an agent with creative capacities. Constructing. There's no experience of the player subject as an agent. Okay. There is no experience of the player subject as an agent with creative capacities, constructing their own values within the game world and living by them. The game turns their alleged key ethical decision-making mechanic into a resource management process that does not require any type of moral reasoning for the player to succeed. Oh. A resource management process that does not require any type of moral reasoning for the player to succeed. It is precisely this that makes Bioshock Listener Mechanic an unethical design choice. It taunts the values of the player. It seems to put the player in the central position of the network of responsibility within the game as a master of her own ethical presence in the game world, but in the end, there's no meaning attached to the choice, and the player sees her own ethical agency deprived of any content or capacities. It is the developer who have already said how the world will respond to her actions in a binary system of outcomes. Either she kills the girls or she doesn't, and if she does so, there will be a negative ending, and in the other case, a positive ending. And the resource will be roughly the same, so the gameplay progression is not affected by moral choice. Yippee! We have won. Which is hilarious, dude. I haven't watched The Quiet Place yet. It's interesting. For some reason I can't explain, I just think Peter. I'm looking at an image of Invincible Mark Grayson, but with the face of Tom Holland, and that scares me. I used to rule the world. Reach page 161. There is still 45 minutes left? Yeah, 45 minutes left. Do I want to speedrun this a little bit? I'm tempted. I'm super tempted. Okay, I'm gonna speedrun this until the DEFCON part, actually. I'm gonna continue forward. In most ethical games, gameplay progression is affected by ethical choice. Every choice taken by a player has to reflect her values in the game and seen as well as reflected in the game system, in terms of resources, mechanics, and the behavior of other computer-controlled or human agents. The fact that the result of the choice between the life and death of a little sister is more or less insignificant deprives the player of any interest in applying her ethical capacities to game experience, which in turn will make the game less interesting from a moral perspective. I would like to push this analysis one step forward towards the field of game design. As I will argue in Chapter 7, there are tools and techniques that allows us to analyze and potentially create ethical gameplay. What Bioshock illustrates are two facts that can hamper the design of any game as an ethical experience: the dominance of the narrative and the obsession with gameplay balance. Interesting. So Chapter 7 later will be tough. I'm not sure. I don't like it. I don't like the, what do you call it? Prediction? No, precognition? Foreshadowing. That Miguel gives me right here. Illustrates are two facts that can hamper the design of any game as an ethical experience. The dominance of the narrative. There's more, of course. This is just what Bishocks are showing. And the obsession with gameplay balance. Balance. We need to have the balance, you know. But what does the dominance of the narrative means? Admittedly, the story in Bishocks is of very high quality, almost unseen in computer games. Its reference to objectivism, dystopian literature, and art deco are relief in an entertainment form dominated by examples of poor, derivative science fiction narratives. Oof. Nevertheless, if what we are interested in is computer games as ethical experience, even good narratives have to be subordinate to the player-system relation and its ethical implications. Example, what are we talking about? In this computer games as ethical experience, even good narratives have to be subordinate. I guess what Miguel is talking here is how Bioshock narrative isn't flexible towards the ethical choices that the players made. Yes, I think that's what Miguel is trying to say here. I'm not sure. A story must not prevail over. I won't sneeze. Oh wait. Okay. I should sneeze. Oh my god, I sneezed. Finally. I've been wanting to sneeze for a few days because like I've been like feeling I want to sneeze, but I didn't sneeze, so this is really good. A story must not prevail over player agency unless that story brings something to the player as ethical subject. Okay. Wait, so how does the story prevail over player agency in this one? Yeah, maybe because there's nothing going on. Okay. Your agency, unless that story brings something to the player as ethical subject. The example of the mind control plot is effective because it forces players to see actions on consequences in a different light. But lack of significant consequences when facing the little sister dilemma deprives the game, there we go, of interesting ethical outcomes only because there's a story that needs to be told. Any story, then, in any single player game that wants to become an interesting ethical experience should be either subordinated to ethical action taken by the player, yes, or should illustrate the actions taken by the player, forcing her to reflect on the meaning of her presence in the game world. yeah, if there's not much change in the game story after you make a decision that you feel like is ethical, then you will not do it. Sorry, I was like writing something. Where was I? Where was I? Different light. Light to darkness. Similarly, an action. Similarly, an action that ought to be understood as a moral one in the game has to be supported by the game design that is reflected by the game system. The sufficiently distinct outcomes that players feel that her actions are of moral natures. This means thinking about the game balance in a different way than the classic game design theory has reflected on. What does the classic game theory design theory has reflected? A game needs to be balanced in its overall experience, but it does not need to be balanced in the particular outcomes of ethical choices. I feel like this is just a problem of a centrist view. Sorry. I don't know, it's very superficial to say that. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. But it does not need to be balanced in its overall experience. Yeah, that experience. Okay, that's. Oh, sorry, it's wrong. Balance in the particular outcomes of ethical choices. Furthermore, imbalanced outcomes are a part. It'll be so hilarious if like people talk, "Hey, this game is not balanced. It's a fucking ethical experience, dude. What do you mean you want it to be balanced?" That'll become like much more hilarious. Hey, why do I don't get more the same amount of thing when I kill them? I wonder why. Wonder why. I wonder how. For game designers to make statements via game design. Thank you. I do not need to get angry with this. If Bioshock feels ethical dull, because there's no difference between saving and killing all the sisters, players don't need to think about their actions, since the outcome of the design always benefits them. In classic conceptions of game balance, this is probably a positive thing. The game is balanced to different playstyles. Yay! But when it comes to developing ethically relevant games, this balance is ineffective, since it is disconnected from player agency. There is then the possibility of thinking about some kind of ethical balance, a design choice that needs is a possibility of thinking about some kind of ethical balance. A design choice that needs to be made when creating a game system, and that is relative to how the game reacts to actions in which players' intelligence is at stake. In a sense, game balance can yield interesting ethical balance, and of course, the task of the game designer is to allow for the game to be playable despite these imbalances. Therefore, we're interested in creating ethical gaming experience with single narrative. Game should consider classic game balance principle as a tool, a guide towards establishing an interesting relation between players, game worlds, and stories. We need a game where now it's already Undertale actually, where unethical decision just make it like becomes a Dark Soul boss fight. Wait. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, let's continue. I was trying to restore my sanity by singing my mind power. Where was I? In the sense, gaming builds can yield. If everyone just including ethical gameplay experience with single player narrative game should consider classic game balance principle. Still, we get towards establishing an interesting relation between player, game worlds, and stories. Yeah. Bioshock is a worthwhile game about them at pushing the boundaries of counter game expression. Its art direction, the carefully crafted and yet sometimes too obvious narrative, okay, and the thrilling world of Rapture make this creation depart from most conventions in the world presented to the player, but the player experience is unfortunately mediated by an overly conventional take on the first-person shooter mechanics. Okay, and the same aligns to the convention harms the otherwise noble intentions of turning Bioshock into an interesting ethical experience. If Bioshock, okay, I guess I can understand. Like, what do you mean by first-person shooter convention there? Then, especially with the balance and shit like that, because it is designed to be as much as heroic things happening. If Bioshock is interesting from an ethical perspective, it is not because of its alleged moral game mechanics. Those related to the choice of letting little sister live or care them for their resources. Bioshock is interesting from an ethical perspective precisely when the player is devoid of choice. When an interpretation of game conventions and player but what? Players devoid of choice when an interpretation of game convention are used to cast light on the meaning of actions in the game world and the overall nature of choice. The mind control sequence is probably one of the most intense ethical experience a computer game developed with commercial intent has ever created. Ooh, there we go. Commercial intent. I don't know the indie space of Miguel back then, but most indie games nowadays are not developed in the mind of commercial intent. And Miguel was saying, game back then were pretty conservative, but like, how's the indie community back then? Is it also thriving? Commercial this part is interesting. Commercial intent is ever created. This is what probably is people complaining. They just play like commercial game with commercial intent, and then they're like, "Well, why is the game boring?" Because this. The failure and success of Bioshock in an attempt to create ethical gameplay point of the two main aspects that any single player game that wants to create ethical gameplay should consider. A single player game places the player as an ethical agent as the sole and most important agent in a system that is designed to react to her input. And as the sole and most important agent in a system that is designed to react to her input. The relevance of the player ethical agency in a network distributed responsibility is high. The player has to feel empowered to either apply her own values to a world that acknowledge, why do I keep miswriting it? Acknowledge them, or to live the values of the system and reflect upon its consequences and meanings. In other words, choice has to be meaningful and the system has to react to it in a moral way. The game design has to acknowledge and support the player as an ethical agent, or it has to be designed to reinforce the values the player has to live by, the ethic of the persona she is becoming in the game world. A single-player game experience is, from an ethical perspective, the exploration of the meaning of choice and values in the game world by an empowered agent. From an ethical perspective, okay, the exploration of the meaning of choice and values in the game world, by an empowered moral agent. Bioshock succeeded in turning the experience of the game into a reflection on action and consequences, but it fails to give meaning to choices. Its ethical into reflections on actions, yes. So it's successful in making people reflect on themselves, but it was successful in making people sees that. Sorry, but it fails to make all the choices feel that it has meanings. Its ethical discourse is somewhat contradictory and not supported by the game design. A single-player ethical game is a system designed with a moral agent and an ethical experience in mind, and classic notions like game balance, difficulty, or even replayability are secondary. Any single player, though. Ethical. Is a system that designed with a moral agent and an ethical experience in mind. And classic notions like game balance, difficulty, or even replayability are secondary. There we go. What? Replay. No, that's correct. Fuck you. How? Ignore. Thank you. The design of single-player games that wants to create an ethical experience is challenged, and an exploration of the player alone in a game world is seen to be its ethical counterpart. A single-player ethical game is the exploration of who we are as ethical players. And we have reached the 5.2, which is DEFCON and the ethics of multiplayer games, and I will end the study here. So, now what? Now gaming time. Let's see, game. I have 30 minutes to play games. I'm not sure if Dead by Daylight is a good choice. I'm not sure I will just like it. I will just die. I'm opening the game. Yeah, I'm just curious as well, like to see if I can stream that. I don't think I can stream Dead by Daylight. I don't think they have any update just like that makes the game streamable for me. Um, uh, uh, I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing a Roman cavalry, not creaking, singing. In my mirror, my sword, my shield. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call mine. Never an honest love. It's how we rule the world. If not, I'm really interested to play Marvel Rifles, but at the same time, it needs voice chat, and I don't want to like die. The game is still loading. Dead by Daylight, Dead by Daylight, Dead by Daylight, Dead by Daylight. Oh god, it'll be a terrible experience. I'm gonna play Dead by Daylight in low resolution, in a windowed mode, in a single monitor. We'll see how this goes. Wait, what? Sorry, I'm like seeing American politics nowadays and it just scares me. No way, that's fake, right? And then, no, it's not fake. No, it's not fake. Oh god, it's not fake, what the fuck? Holy shit, what the hell? Well, I'm sure everything will be fine. No, everything's not fine. Fine guillotine. Bring out the guillotine again. Yes. Update your marketing. Huh? Create and linear behavior can be huh? I can get erudition shards, but how? How? Oh, they have house shovel. Oh god, I can see the lag. I can see the lag. See the lag. Without even starting stream or anything. Huh? Yes. Oh no. Oh no. That's terrible. Oh no, I can see the lag. I don't think I can play Dead by Daylight while streaming chat, unfortunately. Sadly enough, no, I cannot. Oh god, this is one of my... Why can't I play stream? I wish I can, it's such a silly ass game. Yep, 12 FPS. Nope. No, it's time to surrender and back off. Sometimes you just need to know when to give up your abilities to do shits. Fall Guys? I guess Fall Guys, it's nice. Alright, it requires me to open Epic Games though. Yay! Epic Games! Yahoo! Woohoo! It's taking longer than I said. You know what? I should play The Sims. I should play The Sims. Top 10 terrible mistakes. Open The Sims. Get flashed by the giant schlong mod. I'm speaking about from experience, alright. I was like watching my friend plays The Sims, and I was like, "Oh, can you stream it? Yeah, sure, I'll stream it." And then I saw it, and then I get fucking flashed with a giant schlong of a sim, and I was like, "Oh wow, oh, clap 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 clap, very cool, clap 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 clap." Oh, I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing. Roman cavalry are singing. Never an honest star. That's when I rule the world. Epic Games takes so long to load. Man, I just want to play games. Ah, Silent fail. What do you mean the server system are The system barely unviable. Angry. Oh, what's this? Oh, that's terrifying. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry are singing. Na 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 run na 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 na. Oh, oh, oh. I'm losing my mind here. I now have less than 15 minutes to pick a game to play. Orange juice game? Orange juice? No. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna end the stream right here, right now, so I can get more times to do some other shits in real life, and maybe I can edit videos to finally upload to my channel, which I haven't been uploading videos yet. Like I've been streaming for a while. Nobody seems to like the stream, so I'm gonna stop about that. But I guess that's all for this video. I hope this stream. I hope you enjoy it. See you later then in the next one. Bye bye.